Today we're going to be starting a brand new chapter, 7.1. What is 7.1 about, class?
Probability.
Probability. Does anyone know what probability means? A chance, okay? The probability of something happening or the chance of something happening. That's a good word for that. There's a few vocab words that I would like you to know for today. So if you would, pull out your red pen and go ahead and fill in those blanks. The first vocab word today is experiment. How many of you have ever done an experiment before? Okay, maybe in class you've gotten together in groups. When you have an experiment, does every group get the same exact outcome out of it? Not necessarily, okay? So here it says it's an investigation that has varying results, which means you could get different outcomes, okay? That brings me to the next word, outcome. Read to me, what is an outcome? The possible results of an experiment, okay? So it's many different things that could come out are the outcomes. Next up is an event. It's a collection of one or more outcomes. And finally, the one phrase that we're going to use today is favorable outcomes. Everybody read to me. What does favorable outcomes say? What's the definition say again? The outcomes of a specific event. Okay, so it's what comes out of a specific event that you're looking for. All right, we're going to go ahead and answer the questions about this particular spinner. Let's imagine that you spin this spinner. I am wondering how many, so keyword here, how many, we're going to need a number, possible outcomes are there? How many different spaces do you guys see there on that spinner?
8.
There are 8 of them, okay? So that means that there are 8 different outcomes or spaces that you could land on. Let's look at the next one, problem B. What are the favorable outcomes of spinning an even number? So we've got these keywords here, favorable outcomes. Read to me the definition one more time of a favorable outcome. Okay, what specific event are we looking for right now?
An even number.
We are looking for an even number. Guys, what are even numbers?
4.
0, 2, 4, 6, 8, okay? So I want you to look at that. What numbers do you see up there that are even numbers?
2, 4, 6, and 2.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and list these from smallest to greatest. So what would they be?
2, 4, 6.
Very good. Okay, so the favorable outcomes, that means the outcomes of a specific event of finding an even number would be numbers 2, 4, 4, or 6. Let's look at the next one, problem C. In how many ways can spinning a number less than 2 occur? So how many, I'm going to need to come out some kind of a number.
3 ways.
All right, why do you say 3 ways? Which ones?
There are 3 ones.
Okay, a 1 is smaller. What about a 2?
2 is, oh wait, never mind, it's 4.
What do you think, guys? It says how many ways can you get something less than a 2? Is a 2 less than a 2? No, it is not. It doesn't say equal to, so you were correct at first. The correct answer is there are 3 different ways that you could spin something less than a 2. Okay, the next thing I want you to do, pull out your red pen one more time, and I want you to fill in the blank with the word probability. So a more definitive definition is the likelihood that an event will occur. So I'm going to talk to you about this specific graph that you see here. Over here on one side, it says it's impossible for something to happen. You can see for that side, it's a 0% chance. Who can tell me something in life that it is impossible for it to happen? There's a 0% chance that it could ever happen. Okay, very good. A person flying. If I wanted to fly from here back to my house just with my own wings, that's impossible. There is no way that that could happen, okay? Let's talk about the opposite side over here, certain. What percentage goes with the word certain? 100%. Who can give me a 100% chance that something will certainly happen no matter what? Reese. You are correct. There is a 100% chance that you are going to die, okay? It is for certain that eventually you are going to die. Let's think about your phones. What happens to your phones if you don't plug them in?
They will die.
They will no longer be working, okay? So there is also a 100% chance. If you don't plug in your phone, you're not going to have any battery life on it, okay? Then there's some things that are in the middle. Let's look at this one at 50%. What does it say up there at the top of the graph? How many of you have ever heard somebody say, there's a 50-50 chance it could happen? All right, that's this in the middle. It's equally likely to happen or not. Then you've got something from here. It goes from about 1% to 49%. And what word is that? Unlikely. And then we've got another one here, 51 to 99. What is that? That is likely. Okay, so we're going to be using those words today when it asks us to find the likelihood of something. So here's the thing for section number 2. It says describe the likelihood of each event. So anytime you see those words likelihood, you're going to use these words that you see at the top of our graph to explain it. So it says that there's an 80% chance of rain, 50% chance of thunderstorms, and a 15% chance of hail tomorrow. Okay, so guys, what was the likelihood that it could rain? What's the percentage chance of that? 80%. I want you guys to write 80% chance. Now, if I look up there on that graph that we just talked about, what word goes with the 80%? Likely. Okay, so if someone says, there's an 80% chance it's going to rain tomorrow, it is likely that it will rain tomorrow. Or you could even say very likely. Let's look at the next one, thunderstorms. Noah, what percentage did it tell us there's a chance of thunderstorms? 50%. 50%. Guys, what words or what likelihood is 50%? Okay, go ahead and write that in. Equally likely to happen or not happen. All right, then we've got one final one. What percentage does it say there's a chance of it hailing tomorrow? 15%. Guys, what's the likelihood of that? It's not impossible. If it was 0, it's impossible. Unlikely. Unlikely kind of falls in the middle of that 1 to 49%. So it's unlikely that it'll hail if it's only a 15% chance, but it could happen. It's not impossible. Impossible is only when there's a 0. All right, we've got another scenario here. It tells us that you flip a bottle and record the number of times it lands upright and the number of times it lands on its side. Describe the likelihood that the bottle lands upright on your next flip. How many of you have ever done bottle flipping before? Okay. Last year it was super popular. Yeah, a lot of times they don't want you bottle flipping in the dining room, but does anyone have a bottle in here today that you could flip? All right, let's just do some practicing of this. All right, so when you guys just did it, Isaac got 2 out of 5, Hayden got 1 out of 5, which those were still pretty good odds. Let's look at this up here. How many did they get upright on this diagram? 2 times. How many times did they have land on its side? 23. Okay, those right there are in sections of 5, so that's 23. There's a formula that I'm going to teach you. All right, if you would pull out your red pens, and I want you to write this formula down. Favorable over total. All right, so we've talked about favorable outcomes. That's the outcome of a specific event. What are we wanting to happen on the next flip? For it to be upright or on its side? Upright. We want it to be upright, okay? How many upright times have you already flipped it? 2 times. So let's plug it in, plug it in. 2 divided by the total number of flips. How many times has it been flipped? 25. All right, I heard 23 and I heard 25. Which one? 25. It is 25 because 23 were on its side plus 2 more were upright. So the total amount of flips so far is 25. Now we want to figure out not just a fraction, but we'd like to figure it out as a percent. So first, let's turn 2 25ths into a decimal. What would 2 25ths be as a decimal? 0.08. Okay, remember you do that by putting in 2 divided by 25. Now let's change that to a percentage. 8%. Good job. You just got to scoop it over 2 times. That's going to be 8%. Now if you go back, you can see it says describe the likelihood. That means we're going to use a word, not a percentage. What is 8%? Unlikely. Okay, so the odds of it happening are unlikely. It could happen, but it's unlikely. All right, so for the next ones, think, pair, share, you're going to see this is very similar. It's talking to you about consonants and vowels. Remember, we did this way back in elementary school. Vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. Everything else is a consonant. I'd like you to work with your partner and answer A, B, and C. All right, let's talk through this. The first one says how many possible outcomes. So remember, anytime it says how many, you're wanting a number. Guys, how many possible outcomes are there over there on the tiles? 8 is correct because there are 8 different tiles. Next up, it says what are the favorable outcomes? For this, I do not want a number. It says what are they? So, okay, A, and E. I know that there are 2 A's there, so I want you to write out 2 A's because there's 2 separate favorable A's and an E. The final question says, in how many ways can choosing a consonant occur? Gavin, what do you think? 3 of them. What did you get for yours? Which ones are consonants? No, consonants are the opposite of vowels. So that might change your answer. What should it be instead? Okay, B is one of them. What else? C, D, another B, and another B. Good job. Now, how many ways are there? 5. There we go. Okay, for number 2, describe the likelihood of the event. Remember, anytime that you see likelihood, that's going to be those words that we had in the graph, okay? Do these next 2 problems with your partner. Okay, the first one. Describe the likelihood that your baseball team wins 2/5 of the time. We've got to change that 2/5 into a decimal. What would that be? 0.4. And how would I change that now? Good job. You scoop it over and you get 40%. Guys, what word goes with 40%? Unlikely. Okay? It is unlikely that they are going to win. Let's look at the next one. The probability that it rains tomorrow is 12%. What about that one?
Unlikely.
Also unlikely. Listen, you could put in a word like highly unlikely because it's super close to 0%, or you can just stick with the word unlikely. All right, for the final problem today, we have an account that earns simple interest. Find the interest earned. So this is something that we learned from chapter 6. What's the formula we use for this, guys? I equals PRT. So let's just label and make sure that we've got each of these different things. What would the I be? It is the interest, but it's a question mark because if you look in the original problem, it says find the interest, okay? On your test, a lot of you guys were trying to plug things in for the interest, but the instructions literally ask us to find the interest. Now, what's the principal? $480. That's the amount of money we started with, okay? So someone's going in, they say, hey, listen, I need to borrow $480. The bank says, sure, I'll give it to you, but you're going to have to pay me some interest, okay? I'll give you a rate for 1.5%. So the rate is 1.5%. What do I have to do to that rate? Turn it to a decimal. Where is the decimal point? In between the 1 and 5. So which way does it need to go? To the left. Okay, so you're moving it 2 spots. 0.015. All right, then time. We had some people who messed up on this on their test yesterday. What do we want? What unit do we want the time to be in?
Years.
Did it give it to us in years? No, it has 3 months. So we have to figure out what part of 3 months is out of a whole year. How many months are in a whole year? 12. So that would be 3/12 of a year. Reduce that. What would that be? 1/4. Give me a decimal because that's easier to plug in calculators. 0.25. Okay, so now we have all the information we need to plug into our formula. As you guys said before, I equals PRT. What is my interest or my I? We don't know it, so we're keeping it as an I. What is my principal? Okay, so I'm going to plug in $480 dollars for the principal. What is the rate?
Like 0.015.
Okay, we already turned that into a decimal, so the rate is going to be 0.015. And the last and final thing, what is the time? Okay, 0.25. Now all you have to do is plug in those numbers. They're side by side, so you're going to be multiplying it together. When you multiply all that together, guys, what's the interest?
1.8.
Don't tell me 1.8, I want it as dollars. $1.80. So here's the deal. You go to the bank, you say, I need to borrow $480. They say, sure, at a rate of 1.5%, you can borrow it, but you'll have to pay interest, a little extra money. Does it seem like they got a good deal or a bad deal? That's a good deal. They're not paying too much interest. The key is you want to always get a low interest rate because it will help you not to have to pay that much interest, okay? If that interest rate was like 15%, they would be paying a whole lot more. Tonight's homework is 7.1. There are 10 problems. So if you would, go ahead and pull your homework out now. It is on big ideas.